Logan Paul is completely now. This is what happens when you give the world's biggest dick way too much money way too quickly. And then allow him to have a majority child audience, and then the rest of them are just I guess. Like, how do we get to this point? How did this guy get this successful and also be such a failure at the same time? Like, I get the failure part. It's the having the success in the first place that I don't get. Like, how did we get here?
Okay, we gotta talk about the Logan Paul situation. So apparently Logan Paul has been trying to bully the CryptoZoo victims after scamming them by making them pay for flights they can't afford. What? He's also been trying to bury other people involved in tons of legal work in order to make them quit. His lawyers are somehow sabotaging him by making horrible arguments to the court and potentially working in CoffeeZilla's favor. Prime is completely failing as a company with record low revenue, and Logan is panicking. Subscribe or you're reincarnated as Logan's child. You're absolutely cooked. Let's up those numbers! Now, quick recap for people who don't follow the story. A while back, CoffeeZilla exposed Logan Paul for his crypto scams with a very popular...
I don't think he really exposed him. I think more like brought it to light, because a lot of people were already aware of all of this stuff with Logan Paul. He just brought it to a more mainstream audience.
YouTube series. And Logan Paul did the logical thing, and, you know, instead of just paying back the victims from CryptoZoo, the people that he actually scammed, he decided to sue CoffeeZilla for defamation, insisting that he is not a scammer. Okay, so since then, Logan Paul's scummy text messages also got leaked, basically showing that he was not suing CoffeeZilla.
Yeah, that's funny that you're suing him because he called you a scammer, so now you have to prove that you're not a scammer.
Because he thought he was defamed,
and it's not working.
But actually, because he's a self-proclaimed petty billionaire who just wanted to ruin his life.
Paul also admitted that he's suing him just to make his life difficult. And he says Zilla will pay one way or another. I'll make sure of it. Bro, you're a billionaire. Paul responds with, a petty billionaire. I want people who wronged me to suffer while I continue getting wins on their grave.
Right, so after that, Logan Paul was being investigated.
Yeah, dude is so fucking out of touch with reality.
By the FBI and the SEC. And that brings us to today, where Logan Paul is trying to bully the victims that he already scammed. Basically, Coffee called on 3 victims of CryptoZoo to give video deposition for the case. But turns out these victims are from Portugal and New Zealand, so, you know, they're very far from America and Texas where this case is happening. And Logan obviously knows that he's completely screwed and these depositions are not in his favor. Obviously, the victims are going to speak out against Logan Paul, right? So what he's doing here, he's asking them to appear in person and not over video call, because he knows they can't afford the flights to come to the US. Shout out to YouTuber Legal Bites for this info.
Logan Paul was just outed yet again to be the petty billionaire that so many people out there already think he is. Specifically, it comes up in a motion filed by CoffeeZilla requesting for leave to take video depositions remotely by Zoom. The depositions are of 3 CryptoZoo investors, and despite the fact that they apparently live in Portugal and New Zealand, Logan Paul, or more specifically his legal team, is saying, nah, you have to spend cash to fly to Texas to be deposed in person. Logan Paul, or better yet, his legal team, is being unreasonable, and it's pointlessly costing CoffeeZilla money.
Dude, at every turn, this dude is just a major piece of shit. How can people fall for the facade that he's a cool guy, that he's a good guy?
By forcing him to file this motion and argue it. And
he's going to be losing that money fast. He's going to be slipping out of relevancy pretty soon. It's already happened pretty much. Now the funds are just going to be dwindling because nobody's talking about his podcast. Nobody's talking about anything that he's doing. Nobody's talking about his wrestling career.
At the end of the day, it's playing right into the narrative that Paul is a bully looking to punish his critics and now re-victimize the alleged victims.
So you're telling me this guy apparently took, I don't know, their life savings and now he still wants to take more? Holy freaking evil psychopath, bro. What kind of a person does this? So obviously the victims can't afford these flights, so Coffee will be forced to pay the expenses on their behalf, and essentially that's what Logan is trying to do. do. He's trying to milk Coffee for as much money as humanly possible and essentially bleed him out dry, so everybody knows in the future, never step to petty billionaire Logan Paul, because he's gonna make this court case go on for years and years and essentially bully you with his money. And I don't think,
like, dude is actually a cartoon villain. He's the lame celebrity guy in a Scooby-Doo movie that would hire somebody to pretend to be a monster to collect his fortune. That's the kind of guy he is.
Anybody is surprised that Logan is being this massive scumbag, but it's just funny after he apparently apologized to the victims as well and says he, like, you know, cares about them, he wants to pay them back or whatever. Yeah. But behind the scenes, he's doing this shit.
Bullshit.
So after this, she talks about why Logan is actually doing this.
Okay, so on July 23rd, CoffeeZilla filed his motion for leave to take videotape depositions of Duarte Campos de Oliveira, Martin Campos de Oliveira, and Kira Ann Cree. And he started out by saying that he had noticed the depositions of 3 CryptoZoo investors, which CoffeeZilla, of course, calls victims. He says he noticed them to appear via Zoom video conference since 2 of them live in Portugal and 1 lives in New Zealand. And of course, this lawsuit is all happening in Texas in the United States. Despite the fact that they're non-parties to this lawsuit, they apparently agreed to appear at depositions via Zoom, which means they're not making CoffeeZilla serve them with subpoenas. Instead, they're cooperating. And then he says Paul does not oppose the depositions occurring, but opposes them being conducted by remote means. In what appears to be an ongoing pattern, Paul wants to punish his critics by
why would you not want it to be done remotely? What kind of fishy business could be done there?
Forcing them to incur international travel expenses simply to tell their story. But Paul has no legitimate basis to oppose the relief sought. Now, CoffeeZilla says the testimony of these witnesses is important to this case because it goes to the element of defamation where Paul needs to show that the statement CoffeeZilla made was a false statement of fact.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody says. Logan Paul gotta be like top 10 anime villains, bruh. Ain't no way this fucking financial dementor is still trying to suck away even more money from his victims.
Yeah, so you just see all the kids. That's his audience. His audience is made up of children and dumb people from out of the country.
It wasn't enough to actually do a crypto scam and all this shady bullshit. Now you're making sure they will never oppose you again because you're an actual supervillain abusing your power here.
Yeah.
And the funny
it's a pretty good one, Homelander. Pretty good comparison.
This part is he's not even arguing that they shouldn't give a deposition, right? If you didn't know, a deposition is basically like giving testimony, but it's like before the
bro actually think that he's playing the heel right now.
Trial. So he's just trying to make it as annoying as humanly possible. And obviously that's why this court case has been taking over a year. And some lawyers are speculating that it's going to take even more years now, potentially 2 more years. So Logan is literally going to stretch this out as long as humanly possible. So this next...
Yep, and I hope CoffeeZilla can hang on. Hopefully he tries and seeks help from the internet. If he needs some help.
Part she talks about the victims and how they actually declared on paper that they are victims of Logan and they can't actually afford these flights at all.
Forcing the non-party victims to travel from Portugal and New Zealand to Texas for their depositions would result in undue burden and expense, which is good cause for the court granting leave for them to appear remotely.
Yep, and don't care, didn't care, I mean. CoffeeZilla had to pay for it, and that just means Logan Paul is going to have to pay for it because he ain't winning this. At least I hope.
They do not have the means to travel or miss work for travel and deposition time. And CoffeeZilla also attaches declarations from both Duarte and Martin Campos de Oliveira. And in these declarations, they both say that in order to be at a deposition in Texas in person, they would need to travel like 5,000 miles, which would take like 30 hours of travel time. And this would also cost each of them around $1,200 round trip and take them away from work, which they say they simply can't afford. I
should definitely add that to the suit.
Would venture to guess that after losing money to Paul's project, it probably sucks to then be told that Paul is trying to make them pay thousands of dollars to tell their story in a lawsuit between people that don't even involve you. And yeah, it's entirely possible that these individuals actually really do need to work given their alleged financial losses in this case.
I mean, of course they need to work. Most people need to work and they are not multi-millionaires, potentially billionaires like Logan. And obviously after losing a significant amount of money through the crypto zoo scam, it just made it 10 times worse. Obviously, a bunch of people say, well, you shouldn't have been stupid and, you know, invested in this, but what's done is done. At this point, they just need justice.
Yeah, and apparently it was a lot of people that were from outside the country and don't probably speak enough English or good English to understand that this guy's a fucking moron.
You know, you need to pay back the victims because they did it thinking that, you know, they might have had a chance, or, you know, trusting in Logan's reputation as a famous person, I guess. And here we have the declaration by Martin D. Oliveira. I'm over the age of 18, of sound mind, competent to make this declaration. I would and could competently testify on these facts if I'm called as a witness. I am a victim of Logan Paul's crypto zoo scam. I'm willing to testify in this case without a subpoena, so they're cooperating and stuff. I live in Portugal, and this is obviously the important part. Portugal is, you know, super far from Texas, and, you know, it would take $1,200 round trip, more than 30 hours of travel time. Also had to take time away from work, which he cannot afford to do. Cannot afford to purchase a flight to San Antonio, Texas from Portugal, and for lodging accommodations to attend an in-person deposition. Willing and available to testify via Zoom. Also prepared to share documentation at the Zoom deposition to verify my identity. Right, so obviously Logan wants them to spend thousands of dollars to go to Texas. Not to mention this.
I don't think he really does. I don't think he wants them to. I think he just doesn't want them to testify, and thinks probably if he strong arms, I mean, they're against him. They're going against him in court. He's got to do everything he can to win, right?
This is not the only problem, because they're going to have to give about 8 hours of deposition, and they have to give it to each side, right? To each of the lawyers on both sides. So it's basically like 16.
If people like Logan Paul keep winning these cases, keep winning stuff like this, it's really going to show that the internet, nothing is real, and we're never going to win as long as the internet is up. And it's just going to crumble and shitify until it is unusable. And we get ourselves into a cyberpunk situation where nobody uses the internet except for just to buy things. That's the only thing that we'll be able to do with the internet.
Hours of wasted time, even once you go there. And that's not including time you're just waiting for the court to take place and the proceedings to take place, right? And obviously he mentioned the accommodation cost as well. You're gonna probably have to buy a hotel or something because they likely don't have relatives in the US or whatever. Essentially, it's a lot of wasted time, a lot of lost money, you know, from time they could be spending working, time away from the family, etc., etc. And essentially, they have to put their life on pause for this lawsuit, right? And after they are already victims and lost a shit ton of money that they're attempting to make back by working. And Logan knows all of this, obviously, and he knows that
No, he probably doesn't. He probably doesn't and doesn't care. That's the worst part.
Video deposition would make absolutely no difference, right? And the only reason you would need them there physically is to potentially verify their identity, but it's pretty obvious you could do that through video means at this point, you know. Just
he's just strong arming. They're against him, and he's trying to win in court, so it's just a strong arm.
Pull up your IDs, send over some documents, etc., etc. You know, AI is not advanced enough at this point to, you know, perfectly replicate some dude and, you know, perfectly respond. So this next part, Coffee actually anticipates Logan's arguments and tries to counteract them beforehand. And you can see that Coffee is basically trying to do anything to make this whole thing speed up, because, you know, this is just bleeding him dry constantly, more and more expenses.
First, he says he thinks Paul will argue.
He is such a hero for this. He is such a hero for going after Logan Paul. Or he didn't even really go after Logan Paul. Logan Paul went after him, and he's like, okay, let's play.
That by doing these depositions remotely, they won't be able to verify the identity of these witnesses.
That's such bullshit.
He says Paul will likely argue that he wants to pressure test the truth of whatever testimony they give, and that they won't be able to do that if the deposition is done remotely. But as to the first argument, CoffeeZilla says the witnesses have already agreed to show documentation verifying their identity, just like it would happen in any in-person deposition. And as for the second argument, courts reject this kind of argument because it essentially would result in repealing the rule allowing any remote depositions. And interestingly, CoffeeZilla also points out in a footnote that the parties have already agreed to do a number of depositions remotely in this case, to include both sides' experts and a crypto-zoo investor that Paul has selected to depose.
Yeah, 100%. Everything just sounds like I was right. It's a strong arm. He's just trying to apply pressure.
So really, like I said, this should be an easy dispute to resolve without emotion like this. And Logan is instead playing into the petty billionaire narrative here.
I mean, it's no longer a narrative at this point. It is just the truth. He is exploiting his massive amounts of wealth here to bleed the victims dry and get points on CoffeeZilla. He just wants to further disparage any victims from coming out. And it's basically a warning sign to anyone opposing Logan Paul, right? Even if you sue him, even if you are in the right, even if you actually have a good, case, open and shut case, he will still make it take years. He will still bleed you dry. He will still inconvenience the absolute hell out of you. Do anything he can.
Yeah, and honestly, at this point, if you get involved with Logan Paul, after all of this is done, like everything before, I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen at this point for this argument. If you listen to Logan Paul, you're a fan of Logan Paul, and you get involved in any of his scams, you kind of deserve what you get at this point, because you should have fucking known. Don't be retarded.
To, make this more arduous for you. So essentially the message is, don't sue Logan Paul. Doesn't matter if he scammed you. I'm Logan Paul. I can do anything. I'm rich and I will get away with it. That's what he's trying to say here. Also, this guy...
Yep, and that's not a good look, I'll tell you. It's not going to be a good look going in the future. Nobody's going to want to work with him, except for other people like him that people are already hating on, like KSI and Mr. Beast, who are also losing relevancy. Mr. Beast might be making more and more money than he's ever made, more popular than he's ever been, but he's also at the same time the least popular that he's ever been. People actually hate him, and I think that hate is going to grow as he loses touch with reality.
Is so pathetic. He actually already agreed to do a video deposition involving someone else in the case, but apparently these brothers who actually are the victims, right, the main part of the case, apparently they are not allowed to do the deposition, right? They have to actually come in person. Logan really just wants to see their toenails, actually. He's just a big fan of their toes. He just needs to see a good visual. Obviously, it's very important to the case. Yes. Then she talks about the impact this whole situation will have on the court of public opinion, right? Because that's very important to Logan Paul's brand.
And Paul's legal team could 100% have...
Yeah, you're basing your whole brand on how famous you are and like how much of an internet personality you are. And when your personality is now known that you're a huge piece of shit, it's not good. Like, why are you doing that to yourself?
Have just stipulated to these depositions happening remotely, and it looks like instead they chose to force CoffeeZilla to spend more of his own money to file and argue this motion. And the thing that distinguishes this case from others is that it's not just being fought in the court of law.
And it really shows you who the good guy is in all of this too.
It's also being fought in the court of public opinion. And this is the kind of fight that just highlights and reinforces the narrative that Logan Paul...
And honestly, this is where it really matters. If you're trying to have a career in social media, you have to look good for people on social media.
Paul is a petty billionaire who will bully anyone who crosses him.
I mean, Logan Paul's reputation is so far in the gutter. I think a fucking sewer rat would be held in higher regard. And the court of public opinion...
It is. I'd keep a sewer rat as a pet. I wouldn't keep Logan Paul as a pet.
It absolutely does matter because that is where Logan Paul is making majority of his income, right? It still rests on people actually like him. And I know we think that most people actually don't like him, but he still has this fringe like cult audience or something, maybe a bunch of kids who don't really care about what's going on here.
Yeah,
but even
that and a lot of people who just see him on passing in their social media algorithm as they're scrolling, they'll see something from Logan Paul. They'll be like, huh, yeah, I like Logan Paul. And then they'll see something else later about Logan Paul. They're like, yeah, I like Logan Paul. Yeah, I see that. I see that all the time with people. My ex-roommate did that all the time with people that I knew were pieces of shit because I paid attention on the internet. But he'd be scrolling through and he'd be seeing somebody like Logan Paul go through and he'd watch it. And then he'd scroll by, watch something else. And I'd be like, bro, you know all these people are pieces of shit? And he's like, I don't really know. I don't care. I'm just on TikTok.
Audience is sort of growing up at this point, and I feel like if enough people know about this, if enough people actually bring attention to the fact that this is the type of person he is, you wouldn't even need to, make the kids aware of the situation. It's, straight up just going after the brands and the sponsors, because that's kind of what happened when Logan had his whole side forest incident or any of these other scandals, essentially the brands would distance themselves from him, and then Logan would lose millions of dollars, which is exactly what he doesn't actually want happening. You could have just forked over just a few $1,000,000 to the victims, but instead he chose to go down this path.
Yeah, he literally could have just paid the victims, and then everything would have been said and done, and we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be talking about Logan Paul. I bet his Prime energy drink company wouldn't have failed because he's having to focus a bunch of his time on this, bunch of resources, a bunch of money. He's just focusing on the wrong things, doing the wrong shit, making the wrong moves. He's a fucking idiot. He's a retard. He's still living by the social media of 2014, 2016. Back when we had like Team 10, Jake Paul house.
Of just antagonizing his enemies as much as possible, just sort of excruciatingly making the process as painful as possible for the victims. And it was this next part, Logan Paul ends up being a massive pain in the ass again. So if it wasn't enough to have these victims sort of fly out to do this deposition, he's now going after the guy in the class action case as well. He's essentially having him produce a ton of documents in essentially discovery or whatever. And this is essentially going to be a very long and arduous process, and I don't know if it's exactly legally necessary, but you know sure as hell Logan Paul is going to use every avenue to just bully these people as much as possible.
And somehow it gets even worse because there is a guy called Don Holland, and he is leading the class action lawsuit against CryptoZoo. And Logan Paul is now dragging this guy into the defamation law.
I think bro needs to have a Drama Slop YouTube channel so we can all know who he is.
And now he's not suing him personally, but he wants his deposition and he wants him to produce a bunch of documents, except it is a bunch of documents. And when you have to answer to discovery, this takes a lot of time out of your life. I was watching this channel that said he was asked for discovery and he basically had to spend.
Man, I hope that I never get involved in any kind of legal issues with large YouTubers like this, large social media influencers like this. But, you know, if I got to, I got to. I'll fight.
And 3 to 4 weeks nonstop taking 7,000 screenshots from emails and text messages that he sent to other people. So this can be very taxing on someone's life. Obviously, they said no, and this is what Logan Paul had to say. Through his counsel, Holland objected to the subpoena in its entirety, refused to produce any responsive documents, and subsequently ignored multiple good faith attempts by Paul's counsel to meet and confer. There being no legitimate basis for Holland to resist compliance with Paul's subpoena, Holland should be ordered to promptly produce responsive materials. And this is his end goal. He's trying to make it as expensive and as annoying as possible to be in litigation with him, so that the next time someone wants to speak up against him and say, hey, I lost money because of Logan Paul, they're going to...
it's going to be great. That's going to be great until somebody that you can't do that to sues you or you sue them.
Be dissuaded because they don't want to get involved in these lengthy legal battles where obviously he has a shit ton amount of money. He has basically endless funds to fight this. So
yeah, I think that the shittier that he becomes, the shittier that people see him, the more lawsuits that he's going to have coming his way. It doesn't matter if he fights against these and wins. I think if he keeps doing shitty things, he's not going to be allowed to do shitty things.
All his lawyers can just bury the people in depositions, in discovery, and it's just showing that he has no remorse whatsoever for what he has done. The fact that he's willing to put these poor people through even more ordeals just so that they can testify in person is really showing a lack of empathy and any type of remorse whatsoever.
No way, guys. You're telling me the sociopath who literally filmed a dead body and put it on YouTube for views actually doesn't have empathy? Shocking.
By the way, was making jokes about it and was like, oh, you know, world star, that kind of energy.
Absolutely shocking information. Nobody could have guessed. I think he needs to go back to school and take some iDubbbz classes on empathy. But keep in mind, he hasn't reached the ripe age of...
I don't think that you should let him anywhere near a school.
32, so he won't be able to process those emotions yet. But yeah, the court process is an absolute nightmare here, and it's essentially really bad for the people who are even in the winning side of things. If like, as one of the lawyers said that we were covering before, if you end up going to court, you have already lost, right? Most, like 97% of cases end in like settlements or something. So if it ends up going to court, both sides essentially have to spend a lot of time and resources and money. And yeah, it's just going to be an absolute headache for everybody involved.
Yep, this is just going to be an absolute nightmare, and it's just going to be putting food on the tables of the drama slop tubers. Thank you, CoffeeZilla.
And I don't mind like scumbags having to deal with the shit, but the fact that some of these people are actually victims and they have to essentially go through even more harassment from Logan here is just so...
Yeah, I don't feel bad for CoffeeZilla. It sucks. But, like, he knew what he was getting into whenever he was making these kinds of videos and being this big of a guy and putting so much work into his videos. He knew it was coming. Because you can't just say the true things about bad people. But it's complete bullshit that these victims still have to be victims.
Fucking pathetic. If Paul was able to take money from them through the internet, the victim should be able to testify using the internet. Actual genius. Okay, this is actually like perfect comment here. Literally, the crypto scam was through the internet, man. My god. Logan Paul is such a scummy weasel. You better believe he's gonna be as slippery as possible in order to try to evade all of this. We have a responsibility to not let people like him get away with these horrible scams.
True. So true. We gotta make fun of these absolute retards. We gotta get them off of the internet. At least humiliate them to the point where they don't want to be here anymore. But we can't let it dip into real life, though. That's the thing. It's got to stay on the internet.
Prey on honest, hardworking people. Hey, we're spreading the message here, all right? Anyways, turns out, despite the fact that Logan's lawyers are annoying as hell, they are actually somehow ending up...
Also, don't harass people. Like, don't just go into somebody's comments or into their chat and be like, I fucking hate you. You're a piece of shit. You should kill yourself. You know, don't be doing that. If you're going to go into somebody's chat, give them some actual criticism.
Helping CoffeeZilla because they are apparently making some dumb arguments here. Basically, Coffee actually filed a motion to transfer venue of the lawsuit, right? To Austin, essentially, who wanted to link up the defamation case against him with the class action lawsuit against Logan, right? And Logan was essentially denying this whole thing because obviously, sort of joining the two cases or, having the same judge preside over both cases will sort of speed up the process, right? Speed up the legal process. And we all know Logan is going to lose this case, so he wants to keep this going as long as humanly possible, right? So now what he's doing...
Yeah, which is really stupid because if he's going to lose it, he probably knows he's going to lose it, but maybe there's a chance he might win. But he knows he's going to lose. I don't understand why he's going to try and make the process as long as possible. That's just going to be more money that he has to pay.
Is he's requesting a bunch of info from Dom Holland, right? And he's implying that the two cases are related, right? So essentially what he's doing is he's counteracting what he said before, that he doesn't want these cases joined because he's requesting this info, and this info is related from the other case. So he's basically admitting that these cases are actually related. So he's going to have to end up arguing both sides of the case to the judge, and that's just not going to look good.
Logan Paul may have just painted himself into a little bit of a corner in his defamation case against
That's all he knows how to do.
And by that, I mean, he just made an argument to the court that might end up unintentionally helping the other side. Logan Paul recently filed a motion to compel discovery from Don Holland. You'll notice that Holland is not a party to the defamation case against CoffeeZilla. Rather, he's the class representative for the CryptoZoo scam class action lawsuit. And I mean, for example, if Holland has text messages from years ago talking trash about Paul for being an idiot who got himself banished from the entire country of Japan, technically that would fit into request number 1 with the way that it's written. And that really would have nothing to do with either of these two lawsuits that we're talking about here. Anyway, Holland has also now filed an opposition to the motion to compel. And in his opposition, Holland basically said, no way, Paul's requests are overbroad and unduly burdensome, and here's why. And interestingly, one of the main arguments that Holland makes several times in this filing is he says Paul fails to explain why these documents are somehow relevant, not to the class action case, but to CoffeeZilla's defamation case. Paul needs to show that he's not just trying to backdoor his way into evidence he's not allowed to demand yet. And to do that, he needs to show that it's relevant to this case.
Right, so he's basically trying to say that I need all these documents, right? I need all this evidence to prove CoffeeZilla wrong, but it's not even related to the CoffeeZilla case. This is from the...
Yeah, this sounds like a 4D chess move that Logan Paul didn't come up with on his own. This is his shitty lawyers, his lawyers that he's got that are just like him, that are complete pieces of garbage, that he got because they're complete pieces of garbage, that would do things like this. No way he came up with this one.
Class action lawsuit, right, which is an entirely separate case, so which proves that these two cases are closely related, which is what Logan Paul was trying to get away from this entire time, right? So even
but he's not his lawyers, so anything that he says is just bullshit.
All of the bullshit, he can't seem to keep up with all the lies here, right? But essentially what I'm sort of getting from this is that Logan wants...
But at this point, we know that's what he's about, so like, it's kind of par for the course. You know what you're getting with this guy.
This shit to go on forever, right? And be solved as slow as humanly possible. Even though these cases are related, he wants them to be solved in two separate courts, two separate judges. That way it will go on potentially more than 2 years, potentially like 3 to 4 years, right? And that way Logan Paul can, you know, harass the victims even more, maybe ask them...
it's not going to go on that long. There will be a settlement way before then. He's going to force them to settle. That's really, I think, what's going on here is he's trying to strong arm them and force everybody into settling. And I don't think it's going to work, especially if they ask for the help of the internet.
More flights here and there, and all this money will be taken from CoffeeZilla because CoffeeZilla is obviously going to have to pay these people to do the deposition because he's going to have to pay for the flights and everything like that. And I think this is just a...
Yeah, you should definitely go and buy CoffeeZilla's merch.
Stupid ass rule, by the way. If you want to demand they appear in person, right? I think you should be made to pay it, right? Isn't that like common sense? Am I being stupid here? Because like, if you are rejecting the video deposition here, what is your reasoning for that, right? Obviously, there's some bullshit lawyer reason, obviously, but I feel like you should be making the expenses there because you're making the request here, right? But anyways, this next part, she continues explaining why it's actually going to be really hard for Logan's lawyers to explain this in a manner that actually makes sense.
So now, in response to Holland's opposition, Paul is being forced to explain to the judge why the information he's trying to get from Holland actually is relevant to the defamation case. Paul is...
Because he's a maverick. Logan Paul's a maverick, don't you know?
Going to need to make this argument to the very same
Can't fuck
judge
with a maverick.
who still has yet to make a decision on the motion to transfer venue. And so this puts this issue of overlap between these two cases front and center at a time when the judge is probably thinking a bit about this issue already. And so if I'm Paul's lawyer right now, I'm probably asking myself, how can I make the case with a straight face, no less, that this information from the class action representative is relevant to the defamation case, but at the same time that there's really no overlap between these cases? It's silly mental gymnastics in my opinion, and honestly, I don't envy Paul's lawyers in having to figure out that routine.
Yeah, unfortunately for Logan, his signature move of constant bullshitting doesn't seem to be working in court here, and even his lawyers are struggling to keep up with the fact that they are supposed to somehow win this case while arguing it both ways. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Yep. So the only thing that they have left to do is to drag it on until they run out of money and they have to settle.
So anyways, horrible move by Logan here. Literally ended up helping Coffee and essentially proving his point that these two cases should be related and should be litigated in close proximity by the same judge here. And the reason being obviously convenience because, you know, courts love to save time. If you watch any fucking show ever, well, hurry up. Any TV show ever, the judge is always like, hurry up, you're wasting the time of the court, I just want CoffeeZilla to cross-examine Logan Paul in jury case on TV or streaming. That's what I want. Absolute cinema, dude. I just want live stream trial, even with this whole Ethan Hassan thing. I just want a trial, man. Oh my god, the amount of content would be amazing. When is the court going to declare petty billionaire Logan Paul a vexatious litigant with this time-wasting and money-wasting shenanigans? I hope
they will eventually if he keeps doing it.
Hope this BS makes a judge angry for wasting everyone's time and being so petty. I mean, they get real pissed with that shit, so who knows? Apart from cost, they may not even be allowed entry into the US unless they're citizens. I guess they'd have to get their own visas too as well, right? The extra $250 they need to apply for a travel visa. We're so effed as a country. My god, dude. I really think Logan needs to pay that shit. Like, it's just such a weird system that he doesn't have to pay that. Anyways, moving on to...
I think he's gonna eventually have to pay it at least. Because they're definitely going to tack that onto the lawsuit, on the countersuit.
Prime, Logan Paul and KSI's firstborn child, officially, was actually not a human, but a bottle of, in my opinion, toxic fucking radioactive waste. So basically, Prime, the drink, if you didn't know, has been completely failing since it first launched. I will admit the launch was pretty spectacular because, you know, KSI and Logan had these
Yeah, it's a hype beast brand. They generated a bunch of hype, and that's how they got people to buy it, and that's how it was such a hit at first. That's how it was such a giant success. But I called it. I knew it was going to happen because it always happens with these products.
Massive fan bases, and they essentially pushed this sort of hype beast product. It was promoted by
Yep,
Mr. Beast a bunch and a bunch of other people, so everyone sort of you know, knew that that hype would be pretty strong at the start, but everybody predicted the downfall, and that's exactly what's happening now.
So it has been 3 years since Logan Paul and KSI launched their hydration beverage Prime.
I predict that there's going to be one more campaign to get it popular, and it's going to get pretty popular again. They're going to rebrand, come up with new ad campaigns, get people on board again, and then it's gonna die. That's what I predict. Because that's usually how it goes.
And despite their lightning in a bottle start, the last 2 years have been filled with controversy after controversy. From alleged forever chemicals in their products, to countless lawsuits, beef with the most famous soccer player on the planet, and currently an extreme downfall of Prime sales all over the world.
And it's just boring. It just looks boring. The design is shit.
Finished to the clearance rack at your local Walmart. We all know that Logan will stop.
It looks like a clearance rack drink.
But nothing to promote this product, being seen absolutely everywhere with it, and even using the hype of his wife's pregnancy to indirectly promote it, alongside his at the time new product Lunchly, which...
It should have put art and shit all over it. Should have paid a little bit more money for the packaging of, like, the bottle and the packaging that the bottles go in, you know? Probably would have done a little bit better. Prime is just boring.
Which also coincidentally features a Prime beverage.
And of course, we have our snacks and our energy drink, none other than the greatest meals in the world. Lunchly, of course, we have the turkey, cheese, and cracker stack. Also the Fiesta Nachos, my personal favorite.
Love.
Like I'm saying, Prime is going backwards faster than Megamind's hairline.
Megamind's hairline is diabolical, bro. Holy shit.
Absolutely
KSI,
dastardly.
Man. I understand why you wear the bandana. Holy shit. Now, but honestly, Logan is such a piece of shit, dude. He's so obsessed with promoting Prime. Obviously, we talked about this in the whole Lunchly saga, that he was promoting it at the birth of his child, literally like putting it on his wife's pregnant belly and shit. It was just the most dystopian shit you could ever think of, and Logan somehow embodied this, right? Obviously, Messi cooked his ass too with the lawsuit. He was beefing with Messi's bodyguard as well, you know, saying that they were gonna fight, but then completely pussied out because that guy's an absolute titan. So anyways, even statistics-wise, it's just not looking good for Prime. Here he talks about the fall in sales and the revenue for Prime, and it's apparently down like 70% or something.
You have to understand the decline in its popularity across the pond over in the UK, where the sports drink has reportedly lost 90% of their profit year over year,
oh, man,
going from
so
£3 million
bad.
to a measly
Nobody could have seen this coming.
£300,000. We already knew that last year the sales in America were down by over 50% in the first half of 2024, but now it has been revealed that their revenue in the UK is down 70% from 2020.
How could the sales be this bad when Prime is the best drink ever made?
2023 to 2024. To be exact, they're down from £112.2 million to £32.8 million.
Dude,
this
that
actually
is such
makes
a
it
drop.
one of the steepest falling, fast-moving consumer goods in the entire food and beverage industry.
Wow,
I think it's gonna get worse. I always say with these situations, man, if nothing's done about them, they get worse. I think we're gonna see a product like Prime come out just random, and it's gonna try and take the place of like Mountain Dew or something, and it's gonna do it for a year, or at least on paper for a year. Really, it probably will only do it for like 2-3 months. And then it's going to have the fastest decline we will ever see. And it's probably going to get worse from there. Because these things, they tend to get worse.
Would have thought that a product called Prime Hydration, you know, which is meant to hydrate you, and none of the ingredients actually accomplish that in a competent manner compared to any of the market substitute, is actually failing as a beverage. Wow.
Yeah, he was trying to get zeros on the bottle. As many zeros as possible.
Who would have thought? Now, obviously, down 70% is an omega yikes, and this is in the UK too, which is basically KSI's land, right? Like 99% of his audience is from there. He literally mind controls every single kid in the UK. He could probably tell them to jump off a building, and they'd happily do it. Be like, "I love KSI, jump off." Okay, I'm not gonna. Okay, I need to chill with my jokes. But honestly, like every kid just worships that guy there, and apparently even they can't stand this sewage water, you know? And you know, that really makes me curious about what happened to Lunchly, because I haven't heard that name in absolute ages
I haven't seen it.
So I'm assuming they are surely completely f***ed as well. They had a bunch of...
They're probably in just like some random grocery stores that they have in cities, because here in the Midwest, I haven't been seeing them anywhere. They're not in Walmart. They're not even in Dollar General. And that's where I'd figure I'd see them. I was seeing them in Dollar General, was I not? Or am I mistaken on that?
Controversy. I mean, Logan and KSI basically had no experience with this whole drink thing as well. They kind of just did it because I guess they were sort of semi-boxer athletes or whatever, and that was the only relation they had. And the main reason, they just wanted a quick buck and found out an easy way to do it. And
yeah, and they were seeing Mr. Beast do it, and they were like, "We're almost as good as Mr. Beast. We can do that."
Obviously, the most profitable products, if you didn't know, are things that can be consumed again and again, right? So if you sell a piece of merch, for example, like a shirt or a hoodie, your consumer, you know, your fans can only buy it once. Meanwhile, Prime, yeah, or like a consumable beverage, you can have over and over and over again, and that's where the real money is. And obviously, Logan and KSI, being the most fucking greedy motherfuckers on the planet, saw this.
Yeah, should have gone the Oompaville way and just had an online candy business.
Saw dollar signs in their eyes and just wanted to get into every industry humanly possible, right? Then he talks about the countless bad PR and the lawsuits.
Like, literally, Gatorade is so fucking archaic, and our thesis was to create a better for you hydration beverage.
Yeah, that's what you should base all of your marketing on. That actually every other company sucks. Every company that you've loved that's like a staple of America, they all suck. Yeah, that's the marketing you should go for.
Sounds a bit high.
What is that flavour you got there?
Tropical punch, it says.
Oh, Jesus.
Loosely. You've just come from the Maldives. How tropical
it's like swallowing perfume. What is that?
And some of you may remember they are even facing a $67 million lawsuit from Refresco Bottling Company because they allegedly backed out of a deal due to what I saw as fears that they would not be able to fill the quotas of this manufacturing contract. Meaning Prime no longer felt that they could sell enough product to justify the agreed upon number that would be manufactured when sales were still high. And in
LOL, so random.
In that case, they would owe the manufacturer tons of money for these unfulfilled orders they allegedly agreed to. And if we're to scale out even farther, where Prime really screwed up is having a lack of direction for their brand and never making it stand.
Yeah, the only thing that they had going for them was that it's colorful.
From these two clowns. Like, the only time I see the drink in general is in massive quantities piled up on some sort of clearance section in my
This is obviously Walmart, and I'm not even seeing them at Walmart.
Local grocery store.
Prime, oh my god, I'm about to get so much hydration. No, this is garbage. I'm gonna tell you exactly why Prime doesn't rehydrate you. It is not optimal for hydration.
Yeah, just don't drink that shit unless you want an out-of-body experience akin to choking on sewage water. I'm just gonna be honest, I wouldn't give Prime to a dehydrating squirrel at the
I've never tried it.
Corner of the road, begging for any sense of hydration, because it would probably kill it. All right, I'd say, hey buddy, keep walking, look for some water or something. This ain't gonna help you.
I'm either going for like a straight up water, like a core water or something, a smart water. I'm gonna get one of those, or I'm just getting a zero sugar Dr. Pepper cherry. Like, I ain't going for a Prime.
Probably say I've never tried Prime. That's how much I dislike Logan Paul. Congratulations, you're living past 30. Prime can't even get sold at the Dollar Tree. I go in there and their shelves are full of Prime. Nobody wants it. I mean,
Dollar Tree, that's where I saw it. It wasn't at Dollar General.
I'm glad they're absolutely failing. They completely deserve it. And I'm hoping that Coffee wipes his ass in the lawsuit too. Again, full disclosure, this is probably going to take multiple years. Don't worry.
I'll probably still be here. More Pegasus will probably still be here.
I'll still be there covering it, covering all the updates as usual. But yeah, it sucks that it just takes so freaking long to get a little bit of justice. But anyways, that's about it. Click this video or your water supply is replaced by Prime for—
Oh no! You better go and subscribe to this guy. I got him linked down there in the description. Logan Paul is completely fucked now. I don't know how he's going to come back from all of this. I don't think he can. I think he's just going to have to go into hiding and stay away from the internet. How is this guy even allowed to do things? Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell for all notifications.